Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 40, the week of April 19th, 2024. My name's Drew Koenig. With me, as always, my co-host, Matt Sassy. Matt, how we doing?
I'm good. It's been a week, but you know what? I don't have to work again until Thursday, so
Sure.
that's a win.
That is.
I mean, we're taking a 7-year-old to Hershey, Pennsylvania, so I'm not sure if I'll feel the same way once we get to Thursday, but...
Yeah, fair. And on the bright side, we're fully into spring now.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of. A gentle plea to the universe. Hot or cold, just one or the other.
Make up your mind.
Make up your mind. It was 90 degrees the other day, and we were pushing like 40 earlier this morning. Like, just help me out here. That aside, it's very nice out now.
Today was nice, yes.
Yeah, today's nice.
Other days this week, not so much.
I mean, I think this might be the difference between, like, Ohio and Jersey weather.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is perhaps slightly more temperate than yours. But,
yeah.
Overall, rather nice. So let's talk about some news real quick.
Yes, let's
run some stuff down. So first thing that I forgot to mention last week, which is relevant to our interest on this podcast, is that Quantum Leap was canceled after its second season.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that.
Yes.
Too, because I messaged you when it happened and you were very upset.
yeah, it's a bummer because I did really like that show.
Yep.
Even if it wasn't amazing, but I did enjoy it.
It was a fun romp.
Yeah, it was a fun romp.
You know, we had a good time.
Poor Liza Taylor not having a great post 100 career. Just, it's rough out there, guys. But yeah, just pour one out for Quantum Leap. I'm just now remembering that I didn't actually finish that season, so I will forever not know how it ended.
And then today, CBS canceled CSI Vegas and So Help Me Todd.
Oh. CSI Vegas, I can see. So Help Me Todd.
I can see that because, yeah, it was kind of eh.
Yeah.
But So Help Me Todd seemed to be garnering a lot of positive feedback, so I'm a little surprised by that one.
Yeah, it was fairly well received critically and had a good audience.
Poor Skylar Astin. He just can't catch a break. I wonder if he'll go back to theater.
I mean, when in doubt.
Probably not. He's been doing TV for so long. But I was a little saddened by So Help Me Todd. I watch it on occasion, not every week, because I feel like you don't necessarily have to. But I enjoy it. It's fun. It's one of those shows that makes you laugh. And it's kind of a cute concept. So I'm a little sad that one's not getting another season.
Yeah, it did seem like there was at least one person talking about it on Twitter every week. So I am a little surprised that they canceled it. It seems like they've renewed basically every other show on CBS though. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say they renewed Elsbeth, which reminded me that we need to go back and watch the next few episodes of that, because didn't it just come back?
Yeah, it just came back. But they still only had like one episode out. So
we're not too far behind then, okay.
No, yeah. They still haven't renewed NCIS Hawaii.
Yeah.
Which from what I've heard, there's a lot of like back room hand wringing about that one.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same boat that, we just talked about this off mic about how NBC has renewed pretty much everything on their docket except for Law and Order Organized Crime. And I think it has something to do with showrunner drama and writer drama, because like that show, as great as it is, I think we've had a different showrunner every season.
Right.
So like it could be a potentially that's the issue going on here, but I'm like, listen, keep Christopher Maloney on TV and you will always have an audience.
Right. Yeah.
Just saying.
And I think from what I've heard, the issue with Hawaii is that CBS is pushing NCIS so hard right now, with so many like spinoffs. The decision to renew Hawaii is a little harder than it would have been, even just last year,
Yes.
So, but like from what I've heard, like if it comes back, it'll come back with like a smaller budget and a smaller 4th season, which is a shame because I do enjoy NCIS Hawaii, and it's the show's only queer. It's that franchise's only queer rep.
Yep.
With Kate and Lucy on that show, so it would be a real loss if that show got canceled. And it's far from what I want.
Yeah. I can't really speak much to it. I've only seen like maybe 1 or 2 episodes of Hawaii, but let's just have some answers, please, network television. Yeah. That'd be great. Yeah. We didn't talk about this last week, but did you see that? I know I didn't finish watching it because it wasn't my thing, but I know you kind of liked it. Monarch Legacy of Monsters got a renewal.
I did see that. Anna Sawai having a moment. Very deserved moment right now with both Legacy Monarch of Monsters and Monarch Legacy of Monsters and Shogun. So I'm very excited for her right now. Actually, a lot of buzz for her to get a Emmy in the next round. So based on her work in Shogun, and very very well deserved.
Yeah. I'm also really intrigued by the fact that, so there was a show a few years back, I want to say like 2017 is when it aired, I could be wrong, that had Tom Hiddleston and Hugh Laurie, called The Night Manager, and like no one really talked about it, no one really watched it, whatever. I watched it though, I really enjoyed it.
I also watched it.
Recently they announced that it got revived for a 2-season order, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I forgot that was a thing. And then I was like, I liked this show, but like I'd also kind of forgotten that it existed.
Right. What my first thought was like, who was clamoring for this? Like, no disrespect to that show, but it's like based on a John Le Carre novel that felt pretty contained.
It felt very complete at the end of the first. So I was like, okay, first of all, I forgot about this show. I really liked this show. Also, is this necessary? I don't know. I guess somebody thought we needed it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. That.
In other news, and I was just remembering this a second ago. Not entirely sure how you describe the genre of book that this was. I guess like YA sapphic novel. Cleat Cute is being adapted to a TV show, being brought by Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe's production company. Which is very exciting because that is a very kind of like fluffy sapphic romance. From what I
haven't read it, but I've heard.
Yeah, from what I understand of the novel. And as the title would suggest, like, sounds very cute. And particularly in our current sphere of sapphic television taking a hit, in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very heartening for this to find its way to TV. And also, like, TV isn't like the first thing I would think of for like how you would bring this to the screen. So,
Yep.
Plus, Megan Rapinoe being like one of the people behind this. Like, yeah, I feel good about this. I'm feeling
right. You know it's gonna be good because
yeah.
Speaking of queer romance novels, like whatever in that similar vein. So like, this is when we went to Chicago, my roommate bought me a book at the airport, right? And she hands it to me, and it's a queer two soccer players like falling in love with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is dark haired, older, grumpy, and the other one is lighter haired and younger, and like the one that's his star is rising as the other one's star is falling. And I'm like, what is this, like a gay Roy and Jamie?
I was just thinking the exact same thing.
It literally must have been a Roy Jamie fanfic that someone turned into a book. It had to have been, because like there's no way that it wasn't. Like everything about this was just like, this seems like a Ted Lasso fanfic.
There's no way it's not that. Like, I don't. Even if it didn't start out as a fanfic, someone while writing like subconsciously had them.
Yeah.
Or like had them as like a mood board, you know?
Absolutely. I was just like, I just started laughing, and she's like, what? And I go, it would take too long for me to explain it. Just know that I'm finding this very amusing. She goes, I just figured you would like it. It's gay and it's romance. And she goes, I know you don't really like sports, but you read sports romance books. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I would like everything about this. Thank you. Oh man. But anyways, it's like I said, it's along the same lines. It was just slightly different. I was just like, oh, somebody wrote a gay fan fiction. Did you ever watch Yuri on Ice? The anime.
Didn't.
Okay, I've watched something you haven't. I'm shocked by this, Drew. I love Yuri on Ice. So apparently there was talk of there being a potential movie for Yuri on Ice. Well, that got canned this week.
That's rough.
It officially got canned. They were like, sorry, we're not actually going to do this.
That's too bad.
It is too bad, because I freaking love Yuri on Ice so much. It's so good. And I didn't think I was gonna love it, but then my friend was like, Mads, it's gays on ice skates. And there's grumpy sunshine. And I'm like, okay, I'm in.
So let's move on into the GOAT. So the GOAT is a weekly segment we do here on the podcast where myself and Mads nominate a best TV character or episode, and then pit them against each other on Twitter. Last week, or last episode, actually this was from 2 episodes ago, now I'm thinking about it, we nominated, I nominated Sam Carter from Stargate SG-1, and Mads nominated Clark Kent from Superman and Lois.
Oh, yeah.
Which resulted in a tie, which we settled off air, and Mads won again. Little house notes here, show notes here. After this week, we're going to take a slight pause on new GOAT picks, where we are going for the next 4 weeks, I think. We're going to be doing a bracket of our past GOAT wins.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to 2022, and putting them all in a bracket and seeing how that goes. And there'll be a bunch of polls on Twitter for that. The first round will start about when this episode drops. So do keep an eye out for that on Twitter. But we will be doing this week's pick. So I will start us off since I lost. And I'm going to do something that I don't normally do, which is nominate an episode that just came out. Which as I said, typically I don't like to do that. I like to sit with stuff for a little while and see where it drops and how it feels over time. And after talking with a friend of the show, Robin Jeffrey, a little bit about this, I kind of solidified my feelings about this. So I am going to pick Dimension 20, Fantasy High Junior Year, Episode 15, The Last Stand, which is I've already made a submission for Dimension 20 for an episode of A Crown of Candy, but The Last Stand is immediately one of the best episodes that Dimension 20 has ever made. And a season that is its best since A Crown of Candy. So The Last Stand features the bad kids having to take a kind of trial by combat to pass the junior year after one of their party gets expelled, and features them having to answer a series of academic questions while also facing down against a bunch of horrifying, deadly monsters. And this was this group at like the peak. It's kind of like if you watch like the Olympics and like the U.S. team of the Olympics, like the dream teams and all that, and you're like, I am watching the best people in the world at this sport at like the peak of what they do. And this is what it felt like watching Last Stand, where it's like, I am watching some of the best improvisers and D&D players at the top of their abilities. At like the apex after like 3 years of these characters and customizing and living in them fully. And this is some of the most badass and efficient that they have ever been. How far we have come from Lou Wilson getting trounced by a bunch of tables. Like just fully making moves that are incredible. Like roles that are just kind of like awe-worthy. Like Emily Axford is like on a completely other level throughout this entire episode. And then just like a truly shocking death from an NPC, and shocking in a way that like I don't typically get shocked by like a lot of television. This like fully had me sitting up. Roughly 2.5 hours of just some of the best D&D combat and mechanics that I think Dimension 20 has ever done. And it's truly like, if anything from Dimension 20 is worthy of this, like this is a work of art. So that is Dimension 20 Fantasy High Junior Year, The Last Stand.
It's funny you say that you're picking an episode that just aired, because I actually am doing the same.
No, God, don't you dare.
It's because I truly, honestly haven't stopped thinking about this in the like 12 hours since I've watched it. But I'm gonna go with Law and Order, Organized Crime, Season 4, Episode 10, Crossroads. And this episode is in the middle of the latest case that the Organized Crime Control Bureau is dealing with. And the great thing about this case that this season has been dealing with it centers on Elliot Stabler himself by way of his brothers, which is characters that have been brought in for this season that we've never, been introduced to them before. So it's a nice little um backstory, fun, whatever. But this episode in particular is heart-wrenching. It opens with Elliot undercover in a drug smuggling ring that involves Marine veterans. And he's being tasked with a middle of the night burial of a dead body. And he digs the hole, and the guy shoves the guy in. The other guy he's working with shoves the guy in, and Elliot realizes it's one of his team members. And so it's so heartbreaking in those first couple minutes that we find out that this character is dead, and that Elliot has to bury him in an unmarked grave, and that he is undercover, so he can't really tell his team about it until like a day or so later when he has the opportunity to tell them. And even then he has to tell them in code, and it's just one of those episodes that works so beautifully because the writing is done so remarkably well. It's one of those situations that they could have made this episode about the ongoing investigation and kind of glazed over the fact that this character has died because he is somewhat new to the team, so he's not an established long-term character. But instead the writer said, how can we bring nuances of this death into what's going on currently in this case? And even more so, the writers decide, let's tack on evidence being found at Elliot Stabler's little brother's place of work. And that ties him to the death of this team member. And so, like, you just know that a shitstorm is going to come in the final couple episodes of this season. Elliot's undercover, so he doesn't know any of this information about his younger brother and how his team has realized that their team member was probably killed at his brother's place of work, which his brother is kind of like a manager type at this place of work. So, like, there's a chance his brother had something to do with it. And so the emotionality, one, of every nuance of this episode is just top tier writing and acting for this particular show. But also the way that they are able to tie all these little threads together and make it one cohesive section of story. It's three different things going on. They've got the OCCB case going on. We've got undercover case going on, and we've got the side story of Elliot's brothers, and they've somehow interwoven all of these together in a very heartbreaking but beautiful way. And I truly think it's one of the strongest episodes this show has ever given us. And so that's my pick for GOAT this week. Law and Order, Organized Crime, Season 4, Episode 10, Crossroads.
Nice. Words cannot express how happy I am that you did not pick X-Men 97, which is where I thought this was going.
Oh God, no! I could not do that.
The relief that I felt.
You were like, "Oh shit, you're gonna do one that happened this week." Oh shit, no. I'm going the Law and Order route. Okay. Which this will probably be the only time I will ever bring Law and Order onto the go as like an episode. I'll bring characters in. I've done it already with Olivia Benson, but I won't bring episodes in very often because the show is okay. Like, Organized Crime is definitely stronger than the rest of them, but on the whole, the franchise is not necessarily something that works very well in today's climate. It's major propaganda. So it is what it is. But Organized Crime is very well written, and executed better than the other ones. So I'll give them my hat. I'll take my hat off to them for this week.
I want you to know the panic and then immediate relief I felt.
You're like, oh, never mind. Don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. So you all can go vote for this on Twitter, and you'll have 2 days to vote once it goes live. And be sure to keep a lookout for our bracket, which will be coming down the line pretty soon after this. So, without anything else, let's move on to the main part of our show.
I don't know what to do without you. I don't know where to put my hands. I've been trying to lay my head down, but I'm writing this at 3 a.m. I don't need the world to see that I've been the best I can be.
So our first show for this week is our continuing rewatch of Adventure Time, moving swiftly through season 8 with episode 7, Normal Man, episode 8, Elemental, and episode 10, The Music Hall. And a lot of these episodes are kind of setting the stage for like getting into the last act of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So Normal Man, which is kind of closing out like the bound Magic Man, Normal Man stuff, and Glob.
Glob.
So what did you think of this?
It was slightly comical because of the whole I'm not Magic Man anymore, I'm just Normal Man. That shtick that ran through the whole episode was kind of haha funny, but for the most part it was very like serious, and I found myself being like, okay, maybe there is a little bit of a redemption there for Magic Man. He's trying. He's not perfect. He's trying.
Right.
And the whole, thing where he tries to take Glob back with him to Mars, and Glob's like, nah, I think you should just go back to Mars and face what you've done, and I'll stay here. And he just, I think that's necessary because Magic/Normal Man needs that. He needs to see firsthand what his actions caused, and the fact that people really, really, really don't like him. He's done a lot of bad things, and he has to reconcile with that. And I really like that this show kind of shows that sometimes you make decisions in life and you hurt people, and you have to acknowledge it and try to make amends for it if you can.
Right. And also the Martians need a new leader.
Well, that too, but
so it kind of comes at cross purposes.
Yeah. I was like, maybe I went a little too deep. No. That's what I was feeling as I watched it this week.
Mm-hmm. a good vocal performance from Tom Kenny, who normally voices the Ice King as Normal Man. Who Tom Kenny's really good at finding and going from like the really like heightened bombastic of like Magic Man and the Ice King, and then like taking it down and normalizing it with like Normal Man inside.
Yeah, honestly, to be dead honest, when the episode first started, I was like, who is this character? Because like it didn't really register with me immediately that, oh, this is what became of Magic Man. Because the demeanor is different, the voice is different, obviously the appearance is pretty much the same. It just immediately didn't register with me because, especially when you go to get to the scene where he's on Mars, the Martians all look like him. So like it wasn't registering immediately, oh, this is what Magic Man became after he lost his abilities. The fact that voice actor can do that, because I was like, If it had been Magic Man's voice, I'd have been like, oh, that's Magic Man. Okay, cool. He's just not Magic Man anymore. But no, it's a completely different voice. So, like, you have to, like, really be like, oh, light bulb moment. Now you know who this character is. And that's, you know, that's the voice acting. Like, that's the, you know, skills of Tom Kenny. Yeah, so.
Well, like, the performance is doing a lot, but it's also, like, kind of as you said, it's also the eyes and the hair.
Yeah.
Really demonstrating, like, a different person altogether.
And I think that's why we're able to, or at least I'm able to allow him that redemption. Because I'm able to separate him as being like, oh, this thing he went through made him a different person. You can literally see that he is a different person. And so I'm allowing myself to accept that he is redeeming himself through his actions, through his care for Glob and trying to make amends with Glob, through his going back to Mars and trying to be there for those people.
Right, yeah. Well, you even see, like, that same allowance be given by Glob.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are a different person than even the normal man you were, or like the Magic Man you were before Margles. You know.
Yep.
Like, the Magic Man you were both before and post Margles, when you were sane and then lost your mind. Like, that is a solely different, but also still you person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it feels really meaningful that, like, when Glob goes back up and he's like, I was with normal man. Like, they know who he's talking about. You know.
Yep.
It is like a quiet thing of, like, the name feeding into identity and that all being kind of intangible, but also interconnected and easily discerned. You know, that I really appreciate. And also just, like, some really fun. There were some really fun animation styles with, like, not only them, like, the kind of tracking shot of them running up the mountain, of Jake Finn and Normal Man running up the mountain, but also with how the tiny Manicore is being animated.
Yes.
Oh, it's very good. I love Tiny Manicore. The guy just needs therapy. Like, he just needs to go see a therapist.
Yep.
But yeah, a really good showcase for, like, the way that the show likes to do its animation.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of, like, the more weird and bombastic styles that it has, which I always like.
Yep.
Let's talk about Elemental, which is bringing back the
Four elements.
Yeah, the four elements that was brought up back in Gunther.
Which, again, I just think it's hilarious that in this universe, the four elements are not earth, wind, water and fire, whatever. It's ice, fire, candy, and slime. Is that what the fourth one is? I'm like, these are the most ridiculous elements of all time. But I mean, it makes sense for this universe. Like, you have the candy people, you have these blobby type people, you have the Ice King, you have Fire Princess. So, like, it makes sense. But at the same time, it's just very funny to me because it's like, this is not cool. This is like if you ordered elements on Wish. Like,
right. Well, it definitely does feel like the writers were like, all right, we need to do the four elements thing. Do we have who do we have? Do we have a rock princess? 100% if there was a rock princess, it would have been that instead of slime princess. Like, 100%.
100%.
The ice elemental, she's the worst. She's just the worst.
She's just terrible. She's like, she's the whiny, bratty friend that no one wants to hang out with, but like they can't seem to get to go away. That is her. Like, legitimately, that is what she was. And maybe it's because in my friend group, we currently have someone in our friend group that has caused a lot of contention in the group and doesn't seem to realize that she's caused contention in the group. And so she doesn't go away and give us time to like calm down from this contention. And so, like, she's just there, always there, and nobody else wants her there. And like, I feel like that's what I felt watching the ice elemental gathering
Yeah.
up these princesses, and I'm like, nobody wants you, like, just go away.
Well, it is funny when you think of like this is a show written for Gen Z,
Yeah.
you know, and then the show is like, hey, here's a millennial.
Here's the millennial, exactly.
And yeah, she's just the worst. Just she sucks so much. Like that line of like, well, I remember when I was a teenager, I'm 28. It's like, oh, you were just awful.
You're so awful. Just
I hate you
just
so
go
much.
away. Could you stop talking? That would be great.
Yes, yeah. But she is deliciously awful. And her interactions with the Ice King are just so funny.
I know. He's like, why are you guys being all whatever to her? She's so great. And we're like, Ice King, you don't see it.
Well,
Sir,
and
you don't see it.
I do really like Finn's initial moment of, oh wow, she's really hot.
Yeah.
And then that just crashing down.
Yeah.
It is that moment of like you meet someone and you're like, oh, they're very pretty, and then
Mm-hmm.
you listen to them talk for a few minutes and you're like, never mind, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
It's okay. I also really liked the demonstration of like how the Ice King has been capturing all these princesses all these years.
Yeah.
Because like the entire show has kind of been like the Ice King's kind of hapless. Like how is he doing this? And here it's like, no, he's actually really good at this. Like this is the part he's actually really good
And I love that Jake was like, "No, please don't do this. You've been doing so good. Like, don't start kidnapping princesses again."
at. Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like
He's like, you
you
can't
are
do that.
never the voice of reason. What are you doing here?
Yeah, no, Jake's point of like, you can't do that. He's semi-reformed.
He's semi-reformed.
And that is true. Like in this point of the show, the Ice King has not been doing like those plot lines for like a long time.
Right. He's definitely been more just hanging out with Finn and Jake and Marceline and having a good time than he has been with trying to get Princess Bubblegum. And it's funny because you don't really think about that level of growth for him until it's like staring you in the face. And then you're like, oh, yeah, he hasn't been doing that. You're right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like even like the beginning of the episode, him stealing hangers is weird. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
like it's out of place for this character now. And you're like, what are you doing? Why are you stealing hangers?
That's not you. What who replaced you?
Yeah, yeah. And then there was also some good Princess Bubblegum stuff in this episode. Like, I like at the beginning of this episode that PB is better, but she is still spying on her bubblegum, her banana guards. She stops. I think she stops spying on everyone else, but in like official capacities.
Well, I mean, I would too.
Yeah, because they're real dumb. They're
They're
just
so dumb. Like, if I don't understand why they're her guards, because they are the worst option to protect her kingdom. Like, girl, no wonder you're spying on people. You have the worst option as your guards. They are gonna let everybody in. Like,
I feel like I almost feel like this was like a concerted effort from Princess Bubblegum like a long time ago to like tamp down on her more like fascistic elements.
mm-hmm.
Um, she's like, all right, I know that I can kind of go off the deep end a little bit, and I can be a little bit of a tyrant. So I'll make these guys, and I won't have like a complete police state.
Right.
So it'll be a little bit of like a check and balance here. It's not much, but it's what I got.
Yeah, it's you gotta squint to see it, but it's there.
Well, because like if she really wanted like complete security for the Candy Kingdom, she could have just not killed all the rattle balls, you know.
That's true.
Or at the very least, she could have kept the rattle balls around. But instead, she kept the banana guards. That feels indicative of something to me.
You do make a solid point. I also really like the moment with Bubblegum when she realizes that she can supposedly she can shoot um jelly beans out of her hands, and she tries and it fails miserably.
Oh no, yeah, I love that moment where like Slime Princess is able to immediately shoot so much slime out of her hands,
Yep.
and Princess Bubblegum struggles to make one single jelly bean, which is like the perfect. It's the perfect thing to torment PB with.
Right, and I think it also kind of like plays into, you know, her personality, that she generally goes over the top a lot. And lately she's been, like you said, like she's been really working hard to hone that in and not do it as much. And I think that's kind of part of the reason why it doesn't come easily to her at this current juncture in her life. Like, I bet you if she had discovered that power even like season 1, she probably could have easily just shot off a ton of jelly beans.
Probably.
Because some of this is like, you know, mind blocking too. I just thought it was so funny, and I think it's really funny that Ice Elemental like made fun of her facial expression doing it, because I'm like, no, but seriously, your facial expression was hilarious while you were trying to do one jelly bean.
But yeah, like I said, Elementals is obviously like building, like setting something up for this last chunk of the show. Be exciting to get to that and see what.
Yeah, I feel like it's not one of those episodes that just like introduces this concept just for the heck of it.
So let's move on to the musical Adventure Time's quasi musical episode, sort of.
They're all musical in some way.
Yeah. And this episode felt really potent to me, as we've talked a lot about the way that Finn deals with emotion and grief, and just sadness in general, and the loss of the Finn sword, kind of just like taking him out finally, or just kind of bodying him in a way that he typically does not allow himself to feel. But it is that thing of like, I felt so much that I've gone in like the other direction now. I've gone like too far, like down a depression hole.
And in this hole, I found music. I do find it interesting that like I started to get the idea of like what you're talking about, like towards the beginning, because he hears this music but no one else does. And I feel like that's kind of like a representation of he's having these thoughts and these ideas in his brain about these feelings and these emotions, and he's like, can't you feel that too? And it's like no one else does, and so he doesn't really know what to do with that, so he goes searching for an answer.
Right.
And he comes across the hole with music.
Yeah. And even just like what you were saying about like that feeling of like I feel this thing so like deeply and profoundly.
Mm-hmm.
How can no one else possibly not feel the way I'm currently feeling? And it is a statement on depression of like realizing that most people don't feel like this gutting deep visceral thing that you are currently feeling, and that just kind of making it worse and just like exacerbating this like hollowing that you feel.
Yeah, and this hopelessness.
Yeah.
And honestly, like as he's like going through this, I'm like, I've been there, Finn. I get you. I understand you. Keep your chin up. I was like muttering like, words of encouragement to him, not that he could hear me. I just it's something that he has to go through and see to the other side. Unfortunately, and it's it's great that the show has decided to show this, to have him experience this in its own unique way. And it kind of definitely also shows him maturing and growing up, because you know Finn from season 1 would have just laughed it off and just been like whatever, and moved on.
Right.
But now that he's older and he's understanding that the world is complicated and sometimes messy, and there's a lot of emotions that we don't always know how to handle, he's riding those waves and he's trying to figure out how to get off of them. And so it's an episode that on the surface seems very simple and, like you said, musical and fun, whatever, but you dig a little deeper and you're like, oh no, this is very complicated and a lot of emotions.
So what did you think about the actual music in this musical episode?
I kind of liked it. It was catchy.
So this episode is kind of noteworthy within like Adventure Time canon, as the episode has an actual song.
Yeah.
Which is one of the few times that this can be said. The song that Marceline sings is called "Francis Forever" uh,
Mm-hmm.
by Mitski,
Nice.
which is a really good song, and Olivia Olson does a very nice cover for it.
I didn't realize it was like an actual song, so
It's an
that's cool.
actual song. This is a little more keyed up than the original one is, but yeah, it's good. Definitely not paralleling to any like bubblegum Marceline things. No,
No, not at all.
not at all.
I do enjoy Mitski, so that's doesn't surprise me that it's an actual Mitski song, and I just didn't realize.
Mm.
Um, because yeah, I do enjoy them as an artist, and so makes sense.
And then we have some other fun songs here. Susan Strong here, testing out her song at the beginning. Always fun to see Susan. Uh, I mean, that's the joke, but I do love the dichotomy of like Susan as the kind of big buff woman, who is kind of stupid, and then go like, "Can I get more bass?"
Yeah.
Like that's a good joke. That's a good joke. Flame Princess and Neptune singing a rap song.
It's fun, and it was nice to see. Oh, what's her name? The rainbow unicorn thing, whatever.
Oh yeah. Lady Ranicorn.
Yes. Yes, her. I was like, I I recognize her.
It
It's
is
nice to
funny.
see her.
Yeah, it is funny that like Jake and Lady are like the show's longest running relationship.
Yep.
Like they've been together since the first episode until now, um, and there's never really been like a we might break up or we need to have like a serious talk about what our relationship is or like taking it to
Mm-hmm.
another level. It's always just been a very static, consistent thing. Um,
Yep.
even with the plot of them like having kids together. Like it's always just been a
Yep.
very simple plot line, really. The other thing I wanted to mention here is the music hall voiced by Ashlyn Erickson, the singer that does the song at the end of the end of every episode.
Oh, okay.
The "Come Along with Me."
I love that song. It's stuck in my head like all the time.
Yes, it's very good.
I actually sing along to it sometimes. Like sometimes I let the credits play so I can sing along to it.
Mm.
It's not very often that I'm like, oh yes, a credit song is something I want to listen to. Like sometimes I'll listen to theme songs, you know, but it's very rare that I'm like, oh yes, a credit song. Let's play that.
So you want to hear our episodes for next week?
Yes.
So next week we're last week I mentioned a kind of pivoting point for the show, and next week is going to be it. So we have season 8, episode 12, Preboot, episode 13, Reboot, and episode 14, Two Swords. Pretty soon after this week, we'll have our second big miniseries.
Okay.
Not for a couple weeks, but fairly soon. So next up, we're skipping Dimension 20 this week for another show. Robin Jeffrey, I know, is going to be devastated, who told me over text recently that she does not watch any of the other shows that we talk about, but she does watch Dimension 20 and listens every week. So I'm sure she is devastated.
Sorry, Robin.
Sorry. Although she did encourage us to watch the Unsleeping City after we're done with Escape from the Blood Keep.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
I was like, that's a very good choice, actually. It's very good. Instead of that, we're going to be talking about Fallout on Amazon Prime Video. Just lightly previewing it. So I watched about an episode and a half of this. I know you've watched 2 episodes.
I have.
So I do want to say up front, I think we can officially retire the notion of like the unadaptable video game. Like we can just fully set that lay that to rest.
Yep.
Like after Arcane and The Last of Us,
even Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's. Like even like the recent like Tomb Raider and Halo. Like while not great, we're still like serviceable adaptations. Yeah, we can just fully set this to bed. Because based on what I've seen, Fallout is amazing.
It's so good. And I know nothing about the game, but like I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm sad I didn't have enough time to watch more because I wanted to keep going. But I was like, I need to focus on my actual job. I need to be actually working instead of just watching television all day.
Right.
But I will say, I do want to say that one of the funniest things to me is, I don't know if you know the actor. So the main character girl, why can't I think of her name right this second? But the one that was supposed to get married and then the chaos ensued. Her brother is played by an actor by the name of Moises Arias. I think I might have butchered his name, but I know him from when he was a kid on Hannah Montana. And here's the funny thing is that he hasn't grown much taller. Poor guy is stuck at 5 feet. Like, poor guy. Little munchkin of a guy, but he has grown so much as an actor. And like I was looking up his credits because I was like, he's on Fallout, like that's insane. And I'm looking, and he's been in a lot of stuff in the last few years, and I'm like, I'm so glad you pulled away from that Disney image. Like you successfully transitioned into a very serious actor, and for that I applaud you. His role isn't very big in this, but like still, like good job.
I have played some of Fallout. I played a little bit of like some of the games. Like I definitely remember I played Fallout 3. I played a little bit of Fallout 4. So I have some familiarity with the universe. One of my strongest memories from Fallout is years ago. I was playing with a friend. We went into this town, and the town pissed me off really bad. And so I came back like an hour later with the nuke and blew it up.
What did they ever do to you?
I don't remember, but they were really annoying. And I was like, that's it.
Also, I didn't look up the cast list of this show before going into it. So it was my surprise when Kyle MacLachlan showed up as her father. And I was just like, "Oh, hello, sir." And it was nice to see Michael Emerson too. I adore that man. He's such a good actor. And he was the perfect person to play the role that he has. The first couple episodes are very intense. They really draw you in and they make you want to see more, and I can't wait to watch the rest.
Yeah, as I said, as someone who has played the games, like the vibes in this are just immaculate and so good.
That's awesome.
I was kind of worried how they would portray the Brotherhood of Steel, I think they call themselves in this. Because there's only one.
Are they the big robots?
Yeah, the cult, the religious group, and there's only one accurate way to portray those people, which is they're a bunch of fucking losers. Like they're a bunch of fascist losers. And I'm glad that this show decided to take that route with them too. Like even just from like the first episode, you're like, oh, you all are just the biggest bunch of losers imaginable. So I like that. This is a good thing about like Fallout being like such like an open world kind of just like choose your own path kind of video game is that like unlike The Last of Us, which was like following a blueprint of like we gotta hit story beats. Here it's just like you have to imagine a world, and as long as the world feels right, then Fallout's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
You know? As long as you have this post-apocalypse dystopian world that isn't entirely bleak and is like darkly humorous, you're gonna be fine.
Right.
You know, as long as you have a world that dares to imagine that like post-apocalypse is actually funny, it's fun. You're golden.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite side characters in this, again, I don't know her name, but she's the woman that in the second episode the main girl goes to try and find the person that kidnapped her father or whatever. And that woman like kind of scoffs at her at first and then brings her back to her shop and like introduces her to the other person that's her like I guess co-owner or whatever, and they just snark at each other the whole time, and I fucking love it. It's so funny. It's like these are two grouchy old women that just find everything so cynical. And then they shove, a robotic leg on Michael Emerson, and it's all great.
And I love the performances here. Like Ella Purnell in the lead role is Lucy.
Lucy, that's her name.
Yeah. Like, I love her. Both the actress and this character. Like Lucy's just like very naive, but also just like wholesome excitedness. Like
yeah, she has a curiosity about the world. Everything about the way she was raised points to she should be terrified of this world, and yet she steps out into it and she's like, let's go, I gotta find my dad, let's do this is fun, this is exciting, I'm on an adventure. And at no point does she think, oh, I could end up dying because I am so woefully unprepared for the way society is run on this planet. Like,
Yeah, she's like, I mean, part of this is down to like the way that Ella Purnell plays her, which is so good. I think she's great in the show. But there's a certain amount of Lucy that is like a puppy.
Yep.
This very like bright eyed like golden retriever, which is like really echoed by the numerous okie dokies that Lucy gives through these episodes. And it's really good. Like just the way that Ella Purnell says okie dokie.
Yes.
I love it. But also
fantastic.
Walton Goggins is really just so great on the show. Like the cold open with him and his daughter, and his
that's his name. I was like, that guy looks familiar, and I was like, what is the actor's name? I was like, Boyd Crowder. That's not. I mean, that is, but like, what's the actor's name?
yeah.
Drew has officially like ruined my facial association for things because now I think of stupid stuff that he loves. I'm like, I don't even really like this show. Why am I referencing that character?
His daughter is also really good. The young actress who plays his little daughter is really good. Like the line delivery of "Is it your thumb or mine?" is devastating. Made me want to crawl into a hole and die. Like just so good. But also as you brought up, I mean, I'm gonna like Michael Emerson and whatever.
Yeah.
But he's also like very stable. Like there's something about very quiet Michael Emerson performance that I just love.
They're more terrifying, in my opinion, and like not in a necessarily a bad way. Like in this show, his performance is very intimidating. He's a very intimidating figure because he knows so much that you're like, what isn't he telling me?
To quote friend of the show Brittany Ray, friend of the show isn't quite right. Is it still friend of the show if they've never been on the podcast, but their wife and roommate have been on this podcast?
Yes.
Yes, I think yes. So friend of the show Brittany Ray said in a tweet, "If I had a nickel for every time Michael Emerson played an absolutely brilliant scientist with a traumatic injury resulting in a limp and an overprotective, crazy intelligent Belgian Melanie, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird it's happened twice."
Which is also us plugging Person of Interest, and you need to go watch that.
I love Person of Interest.
It's so good.
Deeply love that show.
Such a good show.
Root and Shaw forever. Again, a very good Michael Emerson performance here. And also Kyle MacLachlan, who I love seeing in things. No matter what the thing is, love it. I'm very eager to watch the rest of the season.
I am as well. Like, it's very well done. It's shot in a very, it's beautifully shot. Like, it's just so good. It's so, and this is me knowing nothing about this universe. I'm just very intrigued by the concept that a whole group of people have lived in these shelters under the ground for hundreds of years, and then there's also a ton of people in a society above the ground that are basically controlled chaos. And it's very, very interesting to me. And I'm very interested to see where the big robot guys go, like how that plays more into the story. I like the idea of there being these big ass robots and there's a human that walks around with them to kind of like direct things. I like it. I like it. It's like a human and a guide dog.
Yeah.
Only the guide dog can murder the shit out of people.
I will say that is the only like weak point of the show for me so far. Is that I don't care about the Brotherhood and I don't care about Maximus.
I don't care on a deep level. I'm just intrigued. I'm like, okay, what exactly is their purpose? Like, that's the part that I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued by this. Why are they hunting down the scientist dude? but my focus is mostly on Lucy and the resurrection of the guy from the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
And his hideous, terrifying face. I'm like, it reminds me of is it Red Skull? Is that the name from Marvel? That's what it
Yeah.
reminds me of.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of, is that character. We'll see. I'm sure it'll continue to be good because I've been seeing a lot of positive feedback on Twitter about the show. So,
Well, let's move on to our next show. Star Trek Discovery, Season 5, Episode 4, Face the Strange. And this is a fun quasi time travel episode, which sees Michael and her new first officer, whose name I'm blanking on, but the Cal Keith Rennie character, going through the past of the ship Discovery. It's kind of a walk back through some moments of the show. So we get to see like some characters we haven't seen in a while, and like some characters who have been killed off in the past, and past versions of characters we see now. You see like the first season version of like Michael and Tilly and other characters, and it is funny. You can always tell when like Discovery realizes that they have Tig Notaro for an episode, which is not always the case. Who plays one of the engineers, Jet Reno, and they're like, "Oh, we gotta fucking use Tig Notaro. We gotta freaking use her because she shows up in like 3 different timelines on the show." They're just like, "We gotta use her. We gotta as much as possible." Uh, we don't know the next time she'll be here because some episodes on the show they'll just be like, "Jet's off in her office, in her quarters, doing things. Don't worry about it." It'll be like on episodes of 24 where they'll be like, "Jack Bauer is sleeping. It's not because Keith Sutherland couldn't be here today." So I always appreciate that. I love seeing that character. But it is like a fun little tribute to like where the show has been and where it is now, and you know, kind of a greatest hits, as it were. So it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of a testament to like how kind of absurd Discovery is at times, but also like the deep fun there is. Let's move on to X-Men '97, Episode 6, Life-Death Part 2.
yes.
So before we do that, Mads, you told me that you watched last week's episode.
I'm still devastated. The part that breaks me the most is Rogue holding Gambit and saying, "I can't feel you." And it's just like, like, just destroy my fucking heart, X-Men. Thank you.
That was an act
Jesus.
of emotional terrorism.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh.
I just, fuck you, X-Men 97.
Yeah.
For making me feel things.
It is a fully brutal episode of television.
And Magneto protecting them all. It's just like, fucking broke me, man. Broke me. I'm done. No, I'm kidding. I continued watching, but it was I had to take a break after that one. I was like, all right.
Oh yeah.
Let's watch something else, and I switched it over. Because I watched it today, so I watched it, and then I switched over and watched Ghosts and Abbott Elementary, and then I came back to watch the next episode. I was like, I need some funny in my life first, and then we'll watch the next episode.
Oh yeah. There's so much. I mean, it's a devastating episode, but there's so much to love about it. Like Magneto's definitely coming back.
Yeah. Definitely.
That definitely that follows under the no body, not dead rule.
Right. Exactly. It's the whole if you didn't see them bury a body in the ground, that body will come back.
The body's not dead. Gambit might be dead, but Magneto's not.
Yeah, Gambit seemed pretty damn dead. So unfortunately, considering Rogue could touch him and it not damage him in any way, like I think he's dead.
Yeah.
Which makes me sad. I kind of like him.
Yeah, I love Gambit. So someone mentioned this like a couple years ago, but like the idea that that Gambit and Rogue are a X-Men 90s cartoon thing and not like a wide canon like element is devastating to me personally.
He's such a good character and they're so good together. Like they have a great dynamic. Which is why that final scene is so devastating, because you love them so much, and then to see that anguish, you're just like, oh God.
Yeah.
Can we reverse it? Can we go back? Can we rewind and then pretend those last 5 minutes don't happen? Okay, thanks.
But also the Cable reveals, like, you know, speaking of time travel. The Cable reveal being Scott and Jean's son, which that is so many seasons in the making. Like, Cable has been around forever on the show. Like, I want to say he's been here since like the second season or something. So just be like, oh yeah, he's Scott and Jean's son. Is really something.
By the way,
yeah. Well, like, because I did have that thought of like a son is not like the first thing that comes to mind when I think of like a Scott and Jean child, you know?
Right.
Because like the most notable is their daughter, whose name I'm blanking on, but was like a really pivotal part of the Avengers versus X-Men run a few years ago. So it's like that feels weird, and like this is why. This is why, because it's Cable.
And like it's crazy because like I Cable, you know, we see Cable we also see Cable in Deadpool, and it's like that doesn't compute with me. Like that doesn't. You're like, wait a minute. Hold up.
Don't overthink it.
Technically, his parents are you know, Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor, but
yeah.
Tomato, whatever. But yeah, it's that was an insane reveal, and then to go into, you know, Scott and Jean dealing with what's real and what's not, you know, because they've always been my big Marvel ship, you know, Scott and Jean, Summer, you know, they're great. They're you know, they're that power couple within Marvel. And so like to see them struggling so much with this is very interesting, and I kind of like it. I like the drama of it, you know. You got to have a little bit of drama every once in a while. You can't just always be happy.
Well, I saw a tweet after the episode aired of like they're just like, how could Scott possibly do this to Jane? And it's like, meanwhile in the comics, Scott is like hooking up with like Psylocke and Emma Frost and at the drop of a hat. So it's like, this is pretty character. This is pretty typical Scott Baker.
It's not out of the ordinary for him.
No. But so let's talk about Lifedeath Part 2. Kind of pushes pause on the whole Genosha aspect of this, and kind of ties up some things that might have been lingering with both Storm and Professor X in space.
Professor X in Space. I feel like that's a musical.
It probably is.
I could see someone making it a staged musical.
Yeah.
Or even just like a fake musical, kind of like the one in Hawkeye when they did the Avengers musical. Only it'll be in another in like watch it be in like Deadpool 3 whatever. He goes and sees a musical and it's Professor X in space.
It'll be like the Spider-Man musical.
Yes.
But yeah, this episode really doubles down on like the soap opera elements of this incarnation of X-Men. I mean, X-Men in general has always been soap opera, and comic books at large are soap operas.
Yeah.
But this especially, and this has been very true in these first few episodes. All of the Professor X stuff is just like big space soap opera, and it's kind of delightful. And it, like,
I like the concept that like he was saved by this alien race and now he's kind of like one of their I guess leaders. It's funny. It's very comical and enjoyable. And then in this episode, he finds out that some shit's going down, on his planet, and he's like, "Oh, guys, I need to leave," and they're like, "Oh no, you can't leave."
right. Well, like it's fun seeing the conflict that is.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to stay in space, but also it doesn't make sense for the character to stay in space.
Right.
Right. So like those cross purposes and seeing the episode navigate that is really interesting.
Yeah, it's brilliant and it's fun, and we get to see a more, for lack of a better word, whimsical side of Professor X, who's generally a very serious character, and in but with this, you know, this iteration, he's doing his thing and he's having a good time and he's enjoying himself, and then he realizes, oh shit, I have responsibilities.
The scene with the astral projection in the classroom. Part of this has to be the point of reminding of kind of referential to the end of the first season of Legion, which was probably referencing something else entirely too. But I did like that, and whenever X-Men gets to like show off the Xavier and the astral projection, it's always really interesting and visually interesting. Yeah, his like psychic meltdown over Genosha and like Gambit coming to see him, or being struck by a ghostly Gambit. I'm not sure what you would call that, like a haunting Gambit, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, and it's hard to know like what that is even, because it's not as if Xavier is someone who can like pierce the veil, you know? Like he's not someone who gets to like commune with the dead, but it does feel like Gambit is visiting him post death and almost like accusing him, which I think is really interesting. And also makes me think that Magneto is not dead, because if anyone would come to visit Charles Xavier from the dead and accuse him, it would be Magneto.
Right, exactly. That's like your biggest giveaway that no body, no death.
Yeah.
Because Gambit is fine to be the person to be accusatory towards Professor X, but I'm like, if we're looking at quote unquote dead characters, Magneto's right there.
Right there. Yeah.
He's right there, which tells me he's not right there.
Right. And we mentioned him like 5 other times this episode. And big my friend from college energy.
Yeah.
Big did I ever tell you about my roommate?
Just one time. Listen, we all ship it. It's fine.
Yeah.
If you don't ship Professor X and Magneto, then you're not a real X-Men fan. I'm sorry.
At the very least, if you're not recognizing the subtext, Charles Xavier and Magneto can only call each other my dear friend so many times
before it is officially like, oh, there's something there.
And they typically say it about 10 times per episode.
Yep.
They'd love to point out that each other is their dear friend that sometimes they want to kill. Like, and if that's not
I mean,
gay
do you
romance,
really love someone if you don't want to kill them?
it's true.
I mean, just a thought.
Just a thought. Yeah. Yeah, and then on the other side of the episode, all the rogue stuff is fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, I like the Forges here, as a carryover from the other episode from part 1, but like, it's fine.
I don't care about Storm that much this season. Like in this show, I don't know.
It's a problem with like the way that the X-Men has always characterized Storm as like and this was even brought up in like the first episode of the season of like Storm being an Omega level mutant. And you have a character that powerful, you have to like take her down. You have to like depower her. Like it's the same problem that Marvel has with like Captain Marvel, where it's like you have a character that is quite frankly too powerful, and you don't know what to do with her.
Yep.
So we have to like defang her and declaw her and like have her go on a walkabout about this shit. And I just feel like it's much more interesting use of her character to just have her confidently be the baddest person on the block,
And the live action movies from like what was it, the early 2000s, did do that decently well. Not perfectly, but like decently well. So like I think that's why I'm like not impressed with Storm in this, because I'm like, you're walking around with some dude and you're not doing anything because you don't really use your powers, you don't really have your powers, and I'm just like, I don't care.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and then the end of this episode setting up more like Mr. Sinister stuff. Which I do think is interesting. Like Mr. Sinister is a rather compelling villain within X-Men lore.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, it's wild that we've had like 10 X-Men movies and Mr. Sinister has never been an antagonist.
Right.
Like he was kind of. I think he was set up at the end of Apocalypse, but like.
Yeah, but then they didn't continue on with.
They didn't continue on with that, so it's like you have a very good villain that you could do outside of like the normal Magneto. Like Magneto does a bad thing.
Wait, Magneto did a bad thing? What?
Shocking.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Like, there is truly some really good villains within X-Men lore that I wish were explored more. So I am glad that we're getting some with Mr. Sinister. Because I think it'll amp things up a little bit more.
Yeah. And like Mr. Sinister is just such like he's so outlandishly comically evil. Like just like mustache twirling evil. And it's always so good. I love it.
We love a comical villain. Like
yeah. Oh. But yeah.
Anyway, the show continues to be decently good.
Yeah.
I won't say perfect because there have been some moments where I'm just like, eh. But it's been decently good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm entertained.
Yeah. So let's continue on to Star Wars: The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episode 13, Into the Breach.
Yes.
So we still have 3 more episodes left of the show. And it's hard for me to figure how they continue just with, like, Omega and, like, in the facility.
I'm trying to figure out where they're going with this. And frankly, I'm starting to get a bit bored, which I didn't think would happen because I do enjoy Bad Batch so much. But I found this episode to be kind of eh.
Right. Well, it's very paint by numbers, I felt. Like, the Bad Batch go do a mission, and they, execute it very well. And it's just the thing that always happens. And there's not really any hiccups, Like, and Omega does the thing, and she's very cool while doing the thing. But she still just does, like, a very well executed thing. And there is a fun in seeing, like, very competent characters, like, very competently do something. But there's not a lot there. I think it's the thing. I will say the shot of, like, Omega at the table just looking like a gremlin while conspiring a heist is very good. As she's talking to, like, the other children.
Oh, yeah.
It's very good. Like, because, like, that is perhaps the most, like, fully formed that character has felt,
Right.
Of, like, I know how to do this thing and I'm gonna fucking do it. And
I also think prior to this, like, it's easy to forget that Omega's fairly young. But then we, put her in this situation with these young kids, and you're like, okay, she's older to these kids, but she's still a kid. Like, she's doing very grown-up things. Which is a very common theme in Star Wars. If you look at the actual ages of some of these characters when they're doing some of those amazing outlandish things that they do, you're like, oh, they were child soldiers. Great.
Right. Yeah. Well, like, Luke Skywalker was, like, what? Like 17 in the first movie?
Yeah, something like that. But, like, if you think about it, Anakin himself was, like, 10 when he flew that fighter pilot and, like, the fighter jet and, like, did that thing, in the first episode. You're like, oh, you're like 10. Like, what are you doing here? Like, you're 10.
Right. Well, and even in, like, a more mundane sense, like, Padme was, like, 15 when she was queen.
Yeah, she was running a whole damn country / planet when she was a teenager.
Yeah.
And then you have and then you look at Ahsoka. Ahsoka was young as well. And it really gets brought to your attention in the live action Ahsoka series when they do those flashback scenes of the Clone Wars and you see her as a child. You're like, oh, she was literally a child.
Yeah.
Fighting alongside Anakin Skywalker. Who is like 19, 20 years old. So he's not much out of childhood either.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Yeah.
It was an okay episode. It is what it is.
Yeah, it feels like a necessary, like, connecting piece to get us to like the last bit of the show. But as I said, there's not a lot there.
No,
Like,
unfortunately,
I did appreciate Rampart being a sassy British twat, like just the most annoying man in the world, but saying just like very sassy things every now and then. Let's continue on to Abbott Elementary, season 3, episode 10, To Ava to Fest. And we talked about this a little bit last week in terms of Janine. And I have to admit, this left me a little disappointed because I was hoping for a little more into like the ethos of Janine and for like this decision to really make sense. And ultimately, I don't think it does.
I think they were trying to make it work for, with her being at, her not breaking any contracts and things like that. I get that, but like you said, like it doesn't really have the emotional payoff that I feel like it should. It kind of feels very frivolous in a way. She kind of just suddenly is not okay with her decision. All because Gregory brought her a pot of dirt. And so like I get what they're trying to do. I feel like they were trying to connect her more deeply, to that whole Janine Gregory thing and like playing up the romance thing. But I feel like, based on what Barbara's card said, she wouldn't have changed her mind because her heart has been in this job at the district all season. She's been really, that's where she's wanted to be. She's wanted to, progress her career in that direction. She's always been an ambitious person. So, like, it would make sense based on that statement that Barbara put in the card that she would continue on with her decision and not go back to Abbott. But then she turns around and she's like, "Oh, well, your card helped me," and it's just like, "What? Wait, what?" Like, what? That's confusing to me.
Yeah, I don't think it really rings true that like Janine would think that she can help her students more in the classroom than she can at the district.
Yep.
Right? Like her decision to go back just like for her kids feels really short-sighted.
Yeah, I agree. And it feels like we're backtracking her. Instead of pushing her forward, we're like pushing her back to the Janine that we first met. That was like very idealistic and like I can do everything from my classroom. But no, she's grown and learned that to make real change in her classroom, she has to make sure that the people higher up understand the necessity of these things that she is asking for. And when she gets into that higher up position, she realizes I can be that person. And we see her go through that this whole first part of this season. And just to have her turn around and be like, well, no, I can make a bigger change in my classroom itself. And I'm like, what? No, that's you misunderstood the assignment.
Yeah, like Janine, the teacher, would not have been able to institute a librarian program.
Right.
But that was something that Janine at the district is able to do, and it be wildly successful, and helps not just like at Abbott the school, but like a bunch of other schools.
Right. And it did make sense that she has that slight bit of upset when she finds out that the school she's being assigned to is somewhere different in the district and not Abbott. But Janine that has grown into who she is at the district would have been like, okay, that's sad, but like I'm helping this other school. I'm making change. I can still check in on Abbott even if I'm not assigned to Abbott. Like there was a way that they could have given her that reprieve of missing her students without having her completely backtrack her character and turn down the job. Like, if they wanted her to turn down the job, which I do think that that's probably best for the show moving forward, or whatever, they should have made it something more substantial as to why she doesn't want to work there anymore. Like, maybe it would have made more sense, I think, if it had been a situation of she found something out about the people that she's working with that doesn't sit well with her.
Right.
And she's like, I can't be associated with that. That's the only thing I could truly see her going back to Abbott for.
Yeah, and this just felt like this has to happen, or otherwise it breaks the show.
Mm-hmm.
Which I feels really unsatisfying. But like, I'm already dreading the episodes of like Janine wants to do a thing, and then Janine realizes that she could have done that thing at the district.
Yep.
Like, I just don't want to see that.
I don't. On the flip side, this episode was hilarious because of Ava.
Yes. Yeah.
So someone on Twitter, I don't know who it was, but they said, next year's Ava Fest better be called Ava Fest Tokyo Drift, or what are we doing here? Oh, and I'm like, you're not wrong, because Do Ava Too Fast is very, very much Fast and the Furious.
Yes.
But I honestly did not believe that Questlove was going to show up either.
No, there's no reason to believe that Questlove would show up.
There's no reason for him to do so.
Like, they're not wrong for thinking that Ava is a chronic liar.
Oh yeah, no, they're not. And it's so funny that when he does show up and validates everything that she has said about their relationship, you're just like, God damn it, now we actually have to trust her sometimes. But that's still going to be a sticky thing, because when is she telling the truth? Because just because this instance panned out doesn't mean that any of the other ones are.
Yeah.
We love Ava.
Yeah.
Ava's great.
Yeah. I also loved the bear riff throughout this episode, especially in the cold open. Like, it's so good. Like, I didn't know I needed the bear in Abbott Elementary, but like, it's kind of perfect.
And the funny thing is that like they're cooking chicken nuggets. Like, that's the funny part about it. It's fucking chicken nuggets, bro. It's not that serious. I mean, it is. But I also really love... So the janitor's always been one of those characters that makes me laugh every time he shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode is no different. From being the person that they are serving to get approval for the food, to being to giving a strand of his mop to Janine, and then telling her she has to give it back to him. It's like, sir, you already detached it from your mop. How are you going to use that strand? It doesn't matter. He just says the most outlandish things at any given time, and you never know what to expect from him, and I love that.
No, his delivery of "it's trash" when he gets the chicken nuggets is just so good.
It's trash.
It's trash.
He should be the one at the district.
He would definitely make the district the worst place.
Could you imagine? Just
he would definitely institute like a QAnon conspiracy.
Or he would like make, every other Tuesday janitor appreciation day, and you have to make the kids clean the schools. Like, he would do something outrageous like that. Like, I'm hoping that the show doesn't fall into stereotypical, not strong writing when it comes to bringing Janine back into the school mix, but I don't know. My hopes aren't very high.
Yeah, it doesn't make me feel very confident. Let's close out for the week with our last show, Ghosts Season 3, Episode 8. Holes are bad. So I did really like the finally addressing what happened to Flower.
Yep.
And also the mechanical implications of the rules as the nightmare that would be holes.
Yeah. I like the introduction of Hetty's backstory and that the reason the older ghosts don't know what really happened to her is because they were stuck in a hole and climbing through dirt to find their way back. Is heartbreaking but also slightly funny, and I think that's what Ghost does so well is they mix the humor and the heart together in a good way that you're just like, oh, I shouldn't be laughing because Hetty, but then you're like, but it's funny because these guys are trying to travel through dirt to get back to their home. They're stuck in dirt.
They're stuck in dirt. And they were stuck in dirt for a year.
Right. And Isaac let go of the hand of a Puritan ghost, and now she's still stuck in the dirt. So, like, that's even funny is that, like, oh, there's the potential for another ghost to show up because she's stuck in the dirt somewhere and has been for years.
An insane Puritan ghost.
An insane Puritan ghost. I was not expecting this from Hetty. I was not expecting to learn about Hetty because she's so closed off about herself. But I'm grateful that she's the one that got Flower out of the well. I feel like that was a nice bonding moment, turning point for the two characters because she has always kind of dismissed Flower as being uncouth because of her openness about her emotions and her feelings and her sexuality and all this. Like, she's the antithesis of Hetty. And I think that it's good that those two characters are the ones that had to come together for this solution.
Yeah. This twist for Hetty does make a little bit of sense after we watched the British Ghosts. And Hetty's the analog on that show, always like jumping out the window every night.
Yeah.
Like some part of me was prepared for this as a kind of a suicidal inclination for that character, or at least the archetype.
Yeah.
And I think this is a lot cleaner than the ghost jumps out of the window every night. Yeah, this is a much more smooth use of that kind of plot.
Yeah, and it gives them an out to get Flower out of the hole. You know, because of the whole, it's a ghost adornment, therefore it can be touched by ghosts. So it's helpful, you know. And I do like the joke that they make when they finally are all back in the house and they're like, wait a minute, you were dating and having sex with Hetty for months. Did you not notice? And he's like, I don't know, there's lots of strings and stuff. And you're just like, oh boy.
Trevor is a character who consistently rolls nat 1 on perception.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's just so unaware. He's just like, he was getting his rocks off, so he was not paying attention to the girl in the situation.
No.
Because he doesn't care.
Yeah.
I will say that it makes me love Hetty even more. Because she seems so standoffish to all the other characters in the home, right? But in the end, you ultimately realize that she actually is terrified they will leave her too. And it's just so heartwarming to think that, like, she just wants to be loved and she doesn't want to be alone. She wants to feel needed and necessary. And she just wants to be sure that her family lineage continues in a positive way, considering what happened to her son.
Right.
She's like, I thought I was doing the right thing for my son, but then he turned out to be a murderer, so I don't know. All he needed was mother's love. And I loved that, who was it, Thor? Who said it? I don't think it was Thor. Who said it? That was like, even with a mother's love, he might have still been a murderer.
Oh, Isaac.
Isaac, that's right. It was Isaac. I was like, good on you, Isaac. Make her feel better about this. Like, even without a mother's even with a mother's love, he could have still been a murderer.
Yeah. There's so many, and there were so many good, like, Hetty jokes in the flashbacks. Like,
yes.
The line of, like, the child labor joke of, like, I do more than my part of employing children. It's like, no, that's the problem.
That's the problem. Yeah. And the whole phone thing. She's like, I didn't realize it could dial out. And you're just like, oh, that's sad and funny at the same time.
And the telephone
and
number
then she's
being
like, oh,
4.
let me give you my number. And he's like, okay. And she goes, 4.
4. Like, that's such a good joke.
Back then there was only 6.
Such a good joke. I'm confident this isn't how phones worked, but that's such a good joke.
It's such a good joke. I'm pretty sure even back then they had at least 3 numbers, but I could be wrong.
Right.
But yeah, it's just so funny.
Yeah, and I loved I love seeing the teenage ghost Jennifer just, like, wander back downstairs.
She literally just shows up randomly. She's just like, so hi guys, and you're just like, oh god, she's back. And then she's like, well, I was having fun with what's his name, and he got sucked off. And they're like, why didn't you tell us? And then they look at what's her face from the basement ghost, and they're like, she goes, oh, maybe we were missing one of our basement ghosts. She's like, it's hard to tell, it's hard to see down there. Oh man, happy little miscommunication on who got sucked off.
I do love that Jennifer immediately went back to sleep.
Yeah, she's like, oh, so sad I don't get to have sex. Oh well, I'm going to sleep.
I'm going to sleep.
Goes downstairs and tells everyone about the ghost that got sucked off, and then goes back to sleep.
Go back to sleep. Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
I still think it's really funny that that's what it's called when the ghost disappears, is that it's called sucked off, because especially for this ghost in particular, because he was having sex. So, like, he was having sex and he got sucked off.
Oh, that's very good.
The joke, man. It's just This show is just so clever. Have you seen the preview for next week?
I have not.
So, our conversation we had previously about the rules of ghosthood are really going to go out the window next week. Because in the preview, Pete finds out that he has a new skill and can leave the property.
So it's just no rules anymore.
No rules anymore.
What we settled on is there are no rules.
You do need to watch the preview though, because it's hilarious. Because he goes past the property line and immediately goes into modern day and runs into a delivery robot. So like it terrifies the crap out of him. So it's really funny, but at the same time, you're just like, so do any of the rules apply anymore? Because I'm just asking for a friend. Like, what are the rules with ghosts in this show?
I mean, we'll talk about this next week. But
yeah,
it's very dangerous to have this laissez-faire attitude towards its own rules and world building.
I mean, I guess if you write it off as him gaining a new skill that not every ghost can do, maybe, but that's still pushing the envelope a little bit. You're just like, okay. Anyway, we'll talk more in depth once we've seen the episode. But yeah, be aware that is coming, Drew.
Okay. Well, that is it for this week. We'll be back next week talking about the Dead Boy Detectives on Netflix. So
I think we could push them to the week after just because they don't come out till Thursday.
That's true. Yeah, we're not going to watch.
Yeah. No. We might preview it if we get around to watching a couple episodes or something, but no pressure.
Yeah, I don't. But until next week, Mads, where can we follow you online?
You can follow me at DorothyNYC89 on Twitter /X, whatever, and Instagram. And if you want to find me on Tumblr, you can. It is MadsWorld15.
Nice. And you can follow me on Twitter at @DrewKoenig, and pretty much everywhere else at Drew Koenig, including Blue Sky, Serialized, Letterboxd. I have an Instagram. I looked at my Instagram the other day because I follow like other queer Cincinnati groups on there, and I haven't posted it in 6 years.
That's nice.
The last time I posted was from a panel at ATX in 2018.
Oh, nice. I post on Instagram all the time.
Yeah. You can follow the podcast at Not Another TV Podcast on whatever social platform you're using, including Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Be sure to email us at Not Another TV Podcast with whatever. You can find previous episodes of the podcast on Apple and YouTube, as well as our Libsyn feed at libsyn.com/NotAnotherTVPodcast. Be sure to leave a review and subscribe. Till next week, please remember, don't go in the ocean, none of your business. I saw a documentary about squids, and I'm definitely not going to watch that. Goodbye.
Goodbye.